Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here with Shannon Salmon-Haas. We're here talking about our life story, lots of stuff you didn't know that you may still not want to know, but we're going to tell you anyway. And we're going to talk a little bit about the law, but before we get there, I thought it would be interesting to talk about the different seasons of our career. And we have similar seasons, and some things are different, but it all began with law school. And I've already asked you in a different episode why you became an attorney, but you told me about a potential law student that wanted to interview you to figure out he wanted to go to law school.
Yeah, that was a really interesting experience.
And so he sent you these 16 questions.
Don't you think that's wise of him to not just sign up for law school? Watch a couple episodes of Law and Order, think that's what I want to do, and commit to law school. He's doing like a survey.
It is wise.
Yeah.
I found myself in law school because I didn't want to be a bureaucrat. And that was it. It was just like, okay, here I am. Now teach me what I'm supposed to know.
Was pastor ever in the running? Did you ever think you wanted to do that?
No, because like I was telling you before the show started, nobody ever really cared about what my thoughts were. And so I was the youngest. And so I didn't pastor anybody.
Yeah. Was it a generational thing where kids were supposed to just, what's that phrase?
Oh, yeah, seen but not heard.
Thank you. Yeah. I bet young people don't even know that phrase existed.
Yeah, definitely that also. There's lots to my childhood trauma that we could unpack.
Right here. That'll be fascinating. Rename the show, Mark. Todd's Childhood Trauma.
Yeah, right. Well, let's talk about this law student's questions.
Okay.
They're here.
Okay.
You were going to talk about the top 7, but then I saw 16, so I didn't know why you were boiling it down.
Do I get to ask these to you? That would be fantastic.
Sure.
Is this a good one? How did you decide to pursue law? I think you've talked about that a little bit.
I have. It was mostly because my dad was in the New Mexico legislature, and he would tell me about laws that he was introducing. And so if I wasn't going to be a bureaucrat, that was the only other thought that I had about
What's
the law.
so bad with being a bureaucrat? Don't they change the world, Because you're a lawyer, and you could possibly be a judge, and a judge is going to apply the law. But
my first-hand experience with bureaucracy in the New Mexico Land Office was not positive.
Yeah.
My desk was in the general counsel's office, even though that's not who I was working for. That's just where there was space. Well, his assistant did almost no work.
Yeah.
And so when he would walk by, she would just start typing. But most of the time she was shopping or watching music videos. That wasn't the only thing that I learned. I would go to the meetings that the directors had. They had different responsibilities over oil and gas or land leasing, and part of the meeting was them complaining about the people that they wanted to fire but were not allowed to fire. They were underperforming employees that were protected by bureaucracy.
Right.
And so I didn't want to be a part of that.
Well, I'm always on you that I hope you run for something someday, because that's the way to change things, I believe, and you have such a great ethic,
Yeah, well, the people would ask Rush Limbaugh to run for office too, and he said that he had a bigger impact on the radio.
Okay, nice. Okay.
So I'll have to go back to that. I'm the Rush Limbaugh Jr.
of San Antonio. I love it. Okay.
Right.
This is a great one. What was your experience in law school like? And what are some tips to be successful in it? Do you want to answer that one?
I do. I'm not Catholic, but I went to St. Mary's, which is a Catholic school, and I'm really glad that I did because I needed the support of prayer.
Nice.
I needed Sister Grace. I needed to be reminded of how justice fits with faith. Because it was so incredibly difficult for me, the work. Getting through undergraduate was pretty easy. I could stay up late, not study, and still get good grades. But in law school, not only did I have to know the right answer, but we competed against our peers for grades. And so that was challenging because there were a lot of naturally bright students in our class that didn't have to study, that didn't have to do the work, but would just know the answer because of their intelligence.
Did you ever think about giving up?
No. God has blessed me with a drive to do things even when it seems impossible.
Wow.
And sometimes it makes me stressed out.
Really?
Yes, but I can't stop because God put that drive in me, and so that's why I have consultants and mentors and the Holy Spirit to be with me.
Yeah. What tips, so if someone was going to start law school, what would they need to know? And can we acknowledge that maybe not everybody had our experience, because other law schools I've heard, we were living through a time when their bar passage rate was really low. Mm-hmm. So they had really, really, really ramped up the, I agree with you. It was hard.
Yeah.
Like a level of effort was required that I was not aware existed.
Yeah.
Because I had done undergrad, and there's a certain amount of studying, and
right.
then there's not,
Right.
But it was constant for me too, just studying all the time.
Well, when I was visiting St. Mary's, Professor Johnson, Vincent Johnson, just happened to be in the career services office, and that's who was giving me a tour. He said, the first thing you need to know is that you need to get your affairs in order.
Wow.
Because you're not going to be able, you're not going to have time or the bandwidth to deal with...
People didn't say bandwidth back then. Or did he start it?
No,
did Vinnie Johnson start it?
No, he didn't. You're not going to be able to handle drama. So if you have a bad significant other, you need to leave them now. If you have debts, you need to pay your debts.
What did you think? What were you thinking? Oh, he can't be right, or I better listen to him.
I didn't think that I had that much to handle, even though I did have a wife and a child and another one on the way. I just have a stomach for risk that a lot of people don't have. It doesn't bother me, even when it probably should.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. Get your affairs in order, and then another thing is to be mindful of ethics. We didn't have to worry about that at St. Mary's because they said if you cheat, then you'll be expelled.
Right.
But if you watch The Firm, that movie with Tom Cruise,
right,
they make it seem like you have to do things to get ahead in order.
Huh.
So I was glad I didn't have to do that.
Right, yeah. But study tips, like if it's like it was back then, how many days, how many hours would you study a day?
Well, all day, as much as I could, just, from waking up to going to bed.
Me too.
But, you have to eat a few meals in there.
Yeah.
I would spend some time with my oldest son, Reagan, and then my middle son, Thomas, when he came around.
How did you live? Because you couldn't work. May I ask?
Just by God's grace. The Lord will provide. Okay, I don't want to take too much more time on that, even though that's good
It's
for law
interesting,
students.
right? Yeah.
I want to talk more about what happened to us next. Now, when I graduated, after I spent time studying for the bar exam, then I worked for some different places, but then my very first job was working for myself, representing indigent criminal defendants. Is that what you did?
Yeah, out of necessity, no one was there giving me a job. So yeah,
Right.
I took court appointments. There's always a lot of family law cases, so I just started working.
I represented unknown fathers.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So what was that like? That first early season?
It was just interesting. I learned one of my unknown fathers was supposed to be in criminal county court, and so I went there to see if he would announce.
How would you have known him if you saw him?
Well, they announced his name, and he said, "Here."
Oh, really?
And so when he went in the hallway with his public defender, I went and said, "Hey, do you know this child?"
Uh-huh.
So that was interesting.
Wow, good job. You tracked him down, MacGyver.
I did. There were some, that couldn't be found, but
Yeah. Do you want to share your philosophy on that whole thing? Like, do you think they respect fathers' rights, disrespect? Is the law good on that point?
That's a good question. I didn't have many of those.
Like, how would you have felt if that was you?
That particular guy did not want his children. I represented a father that did, and he tried everything, to follow all of the directives by Child Protective Services.
Right.
But he struggled to go to, like, drug counseling, hold down a job, get drug tested. There's this whole laundry list of things that they have to do.
Right.
And it's hard to hold down a job and complete all of those assignments.
Right.
So I saw that struggle.
Yeah.
But then I did join another attorney. I had a boss for almost 3 years. And I learned that I could work with people, like my peers, even with the staff, we would work well together. But then I helped him grow the practice so that we had 6 attorneys, and I would get more and more bosses. And so I felt like that guy on the movie Office Space. When I would make a mistake, 3 people would tell me about it. And I'd say, "Yes, I understand. I'm sorry." I'd have to say that over and over again.
Right.
And, I wanted to do big things, and I was told to be patient.
Uh-huh.
I was not told what is the pathway to doing big things. And
Right.
so just wasn't a good fit.
And then they took your stapler away, so that was like the last straw.
Yeah, that's the last straw.
But no, that's a great movie. I don't know if... I'm not connected as much as I'd like to be with the younger generation. I don't know if they realize how accurate that movie is. That was our life. I've worked
It's
there.
funny you say that because at one time we showed the movie to my staff.
Right, yeah.
And I was horrified by how inappropriate the movie is.
Yes, that happens to me all the time. My music and my movies, I can't even show them to my kids.
Yeah. And so nowadays, that everybody in that movie would be canceled for the inappropriate
I want to know
comments
Mark's
that they
opinion
make.
of that. As the youngest person in the room, I want to know his opinion.
He doesn't talk,
Aw.
but we'll come back and we'll talk about the law in just a moment. Stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.